His Army, where he served from 2009 to 2013 as a team leader. When Joe first started here at Ottawa County, many of us saw his talents, his professionalism, and his potential. As we watched Joe grow in his position in animal control, many of the deputies told us how helpful Joe was in investigations and translations, and said that his talents were not being utilized. He needs to be on the road patrol. The undersheriff and I sat down and talked with Joe and made an offer when the pilot program was offered for the sponsorships. We brought him in. He graciously accepted. Joe started at Grand Valley Police Academy. And he's currently serving in the E unit. John was presented with an award at the end of the academy from the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards. This award is a special award, and John, you can be extremely proud of this award. As you know, MCOLS does the licensing of law enforcement officers in the state of Michigan, and I am honored to present John today. He was presented this award also at the academy graduation for the MCOLS Outstanding Performance Award. And again, John did extremely well academically in the academy. John, on behalf of MCOLS. And again, I'd like to thank the board and thank my executive team as we work through this sponsorship program. Also with the assistance that we had from Human Resources team. And again, we have two outstanding deputies here that hopefully will serve our county for a long time and the citizens of our county. But again, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen and Sheriff. At this time, I think I see Mr. McGinnis in back from the city of Grand Haven. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about a brownfield project that we did in the city of Grand Haven. And I just want to start out by saying I've been looking forward to this for a long time. We do a lot of these tax increment finance projects, and I often feel like we come to you and talk to you about it occasionally on the front end. I always look forward to this date in the future when things are going to come together and that new tax base is going to be there and I can come out and tell you about it. And we always get so busy. There's always 2 or 3 new ones coming along that I'm working on. So I never get this chance. So I've always thought someday I'm going to go out and show these guys one when it's done. So that's what we've got here in 2000, right when I first started. I've been in Grand Haven since 2003. And not long after I got here, I noticed this building on the corner of Beech Tree and Fulton in Grand Haven that was not looking the best. It looked like this. This is 2014 actually, but it had looked like this for decades. When I got here, it was empty. And it was not being used very well. It was really an obsolete structure. I'm on a pretty important corner with a lot of traffic coming through town. And you can see it wasn't the most shining example of economic development and the kind of progressive investment we'd like to see. For a long time, we had been looking at this vacant building and recognizing that our tax base was stagnant. It wasn't going up. You know, a building like this that's not being used, that's obsolete, does not appreciate in value. And therefore, all of our taxing authorities that rely on property tax revenue as our primary source to operate sit there and look at our stagnant revenues, and it's a little stressful. We don't know what's going to happen with this property, and it doesn't give us much hope looking forward. So you look at a building like this and, well, why is it nothing's happening? And often it's because there's some detriment to value there. In this case, it was a brownfield situation. There's a lot of environmental concern, asbestos in the building, various other features about the property that were making it unattractive to investors. So nobody was coming forward and doing anything with it for a long time. So about 2014, Westwind Construction came along. They had owned it for a while. They were using it just for storage and things. For some time, there were a couple nonprofits using a little bit of space, and they reinvested in the property. So in 2021, it looks like this. So that's by itself a nice project. You know, when you look at what it did look like, and you look like, and I literally took this picture 4 or 5 weeks ago, early in the morning. I thought the Pride Lighting was doing the building a pretty good job there. So that by itself to me is enough reason to go about a project. But just to look at the financial underpinning. So we went out and we borrowed money to reinvest in the building and bring it back to a state where somebody might invest in it. And we've used the property tax collections since that time to pay that debt off. So over that 5-year period, back in 2014, for example, the county was getting $204 for this, and you had been getting about $200 for a decade or so. You know, that value is not going up at all. So from 2014 until 2021, you kept getting that same $204, which you would have gotten had we done nothing. And today in 2021, you'd still be getting arguably that same $204. And you can look at the rest of the taxing authorities. The city was looking at $456 back then. The Grand Haven schools operating was getting about $800 in 14. They still would have gotten $800, and they did each year. They didn't lose anything. We never slide back. You always get that base year amount. But in 2021, with that new value, the brownfield debt is paid off, and the county's getting just about $5,000. So from $200 to $5,000, and all of our taxing authorities' boats floated up just like that, including the city that went from $456 to over $10,000 in 2021. And we're going to keep getting that appreciated amount. You can see that this building is much more likely to appreciate over time and gain value than something like this. So, you know, with the brownfield opportunities we've had, and by the way, we do meet with your treasurer and with administration when we have one of these projects come forward. We're not on our knees exactly, but we kind of feel that way. It's like, hey guys, we really hope you support this. And technically the counties can't generally opt out of these, but we like to sell it on its merits. We come in and say, this is good business. This will create an investment opportunity that otherwise does not exist. So in this case, it really worked well for us. And I just really wanted to come and share that with you. And overall, you know, back in 2014, we collected just over $2,200 in taxes for everybody off that property. And there was nobody working in there. And it looked like what you saw. In 2021, instead of $2,200, we're collecting about $50,000. And all that money goes out to all of the taxing authorities to be used to support the great services that we all enjoy in Ottawa County. So like I said, I've been dying to come out and tell a good story about a tax increment finance. Some people think that's like a bad 4-letter word, and it's not. When it's applied properly with the original legislative intent, it really works well and it makes a lot of sense. It's very rational. So thank you, county commissioners, for supporting our efforts. We've got other ones that will be coming along, and I'm always happy to come out. As you can tell, I like talking about this stuff. And so I'd love to come and present other ones to you. So thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any
Pat.
questions?
Board members, any questions for Mr. McGinnis? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Great job. Thank you. Next, we're going to do a resolution. I wonder if Mr. Mayes can join me up at the podium, please. I want to first say that Mr. Reyes, this is one of the pioneers, one of the pillars in Holland, and she's been very influential in moving forward one of our taglines, and that's where you belong. And for her community and for Holland, it's an honor for the Board of Commissioners to be able to give you this resolution, and I would like to read it to you. Whereas Lupita Reyes was born in Texas and moved with her parents to the city of Holland, Ottawa County in 1945. Whereas Reyes's remarkable life story includes being originally placed in a class with developmentally delayed students because she did not speak English, to earning a bachelor's degree from Grand Valley State University in sociology and master's degrees from both Western Michigan University and Aquinas College. Whereas in her chosen profession, Reyes has served the entire Ottawa County community as a clinical supervisor for patients and family counseling at Holland Hospital and through her own counseling business, which she started almost a decade ago. Whereas Reyes community service has included being a founder of a Latin American United for Progress, the annual Fiesta Festival, the Community Action House, and the Holland Community Health Center. Whereas Reyes' special service to the growing Latino community is most exemplified by her own creation of and continuous hosting of Ottawa County's first Spanish language radio show at WH2HTC AM FM for more than 57 years. Whereas Reyes' show, Alegria Latina, has grown from a half-hour Saturday show to a Sunday evening powerhouse with a host of multiple hosts airing from 7 p.m. to midnight each Sunday on 927 The Van, WHTC's sibling station, featuring mariachi, banda, Tejano, bachata, and rancheras music, interviews, news, and calls from listeners across the U.S. and a few Spanish-speaking countries. Now, therefore, be resolved that as she retires at the end of this year, I mean, never totally retire, but at the end of this year, the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners recognizes, congratulates, and applauds Lupita Reyes for unparalleled contributions to Ottawa County and wish her good health and happiness in her retirement.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners for recognizing me for this. But the recognition really goes to all the people who have supported the show, and that is Midwest Communications, who have allowed us to be on the air all these years. I know I gave them a lot of something to worry about all the time. Poor Kevin had to put up with me. But nonetheless, I thank you all for this, and I hope it continues to grow and continues to serve our community, to serve as a voice not only for the Hispanic community, but for all the community, to unite us in one bridge, to connect us, to give service to this county, to make it grow. And Ottawa County is a growing county, and it's going to continue to grow. So I hope that in the future, we can rely on Ottawa County to put some people in place that can communicate with that particular population, the Hispanic population. So thank you very much. I appreciate this so much. And I'm going to probably give it to WHTC or Midwest Communications to hang along Duke Vanas's great awards. Thank you.
Commissioner Fiske, if I can just say a couple of things.
Absolutely.
I've been in the Holland community since 1977, I believe. And one of the names that I heard when I got into town that was an influence to the Hispanic population, was Lupita and her husband, Tino. So I know that they have been working for this community for over 50 years now, and that will be a name that will be hard to surpass when it comes to what they have done for the Hispanic community in Holland. So I thank them and I applaud them as well.
True pioneer. Thank you. Next is Mr. Lou Hunt with our Emergency Management Division, and I believe he's going to kind of talk a little bit about our hospital capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and Commissioners. I'm Lou Hunt, Director of Emergency Management, and here to talk about our hospitals. We have an emerging issue in our hospitals, and we actually had some developments today as well. So for quite a while now, we've had all of our hospitals in Ottawa County at or near census. So basically, they have had as many patients as they can take or close to that for a while now. We had a call this morning for our COVID briefing, and hospitals are on that call. And we learned that a number of them were surging within their walls, that they actually had more patients than they would normally have capacity for. We found out that North Ottawa Hospital is in a diversion situation, which is they are no longer able to take ambulances from our public into their emergency division because they have too many people there already. That obviously is a significant situation in Ottawa County. However, since then, we found out, which is kind of a domino cascading effect in that at that time, Holland Hospital is now in a diversion situation as well. So both of our hospitals, 2 out of 3 in Ottawa County, can't take ambulances from our area with folks that need treatment. So that leaves right now Zealand Hospital, and that can't last forever. They're going to find themselves in a similar situation. Diversion, one of the thoughts on diversion is that you could send patients out to further geography and other hospitals. But the fact is, throughout our region and throughout our state, the situation is the same everywhere. So that really isn't an option. That also has a domino effect where you start to fill up other hospitals. You take ambulances out of service in Ottawa County and you start to send people elsewhere. So we've got ourselves an issue right now. Hopefully it will resolve. However, we don't know exactly when that will be. If Spectrum Zealand is to go into a diversion situation as well, in theory, all 3 can't take ambulance patients. Probably the solution at that point is all 3 have to open up again because there is not another solution. So right now, ICUs are filling up, ventilators are being used. A lot of different equipment resources have been brought into the area, but there's largely a personnel issue as well. There's lots of factors for why we are so full. COVID is certainly one of them, but by itself, it's not really carrying the whole ball here. We've got a lot of individuals that put off treatment from a variety of things during this COVID situation, and now those have been exasperated and they have to go to the hospital. So that's one. We have individuals that use our hospitals as a primary care physician, and that doesn't help the situation. And then also we have staffing issues, and I don't have to tell you about that. Everybody knows about the staffing issues, especially in our medical communities, and how hard that is. In one of our discourses with a hospital, we were told that they had 2 nurses presently in their ED where normally they would have 4. So that's like a 50% hit right there. Our hospitals are trying right now to clear out their emergency departments as much as possible and get off that diversion status. However, that hasn't happened yet. We have talked to the state, and at this point, there aren't resources that the state can send in the form of personnel. So that, there's not a National Guard option right now. There is not other variety of personnel that can be sent to us. Again, the whole state, and actually further than the state, are in a similar situation. We've looked at a couple other options on the state level, and none of those right now are going to solve our issue. When we all go to the hospital, I mean, we all expect, and we get here in Ottawa County, the very highest level of care, and that's what everybody wants. But we are probably, as we move through this, if the numbers don't get better, we are probably moving towards more of a crisis standard of care model, which is, instead of giving the most comprehensive care to every individual, there's more of a priority on giving as much care as possible to a lot of people. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but that is being discussed. Obviously, no individual hospital would want to come out with that information. It'd have to be collective, but that is where we're heading if things don't right. Right now, the Region 6 Healthcare Coalition is taking the coordinating lead. This really reaches far beyond Ottawa County. and again, as a domino effect throughout our region and throughout the state. There's an expectation that we're going to be at least in and out of this situation until February. And the real fear is if there's going to be a flu surge. We did not have that last year. However, we don't know if that's an indicator of this year or not. That on top of these issues would create a real significant problem. In early COVID, you probably remember some of the large alternate care sites that have been set up in Detroit. There was a couple, we had talked about one in Grand Rapids. There was some movement on that. The idea was to create more beds where people could go, where they could get that care. The problem being at this point is that there isn't the personnel to be able to staff that. So again, alternate care sites really aren't going to be the solution in the near future. Probably we're looking at potentially alternate standards of care. So that's where we're at right now. We're monitoring the situation. We do hope, at least for today, it will resolve at some point. We're eager for that, but this is going to be an ongoing problem, and it is well beyond the geography of Ottawa County into our region throughout the state. There was one of the doctors today on one of our calls who was talking about a significantly ill patient who needed really advanced care, and they were calling around all over the place throughout our state. There was no one that could take them. They had actually reached out to other states in our region, Ohio, Indiana, a number of others. They were also full. They couldn't take that individual. At this point, we do have one of the hospitals just beyond us, who I think is going to be able to do something and give as much care to that patient as possible. But these are going to be the type of conversations that are going to occur for a while now. Looks like we're going to be having a hospitals conference call at 8:30 every day for the foreseeable future. And that'll be for our entire region to talk about prioritization of patients.
Any questions, commissioners of Mr. Hunt? Mr. Garcia?
What do you recommend that we do as a public right now to protect ourselves in order not to put more pressure on our hospital? I'm sure there's some things that we could be taking.
So that's hard for me to say, but I can tell you some of the things that I've been told in the medical community. It's very hard to tell an individual not to come to the emergency department of any hospital, and no hospital wants to do that. But I think right now they would very much like to see people using their primary care physicians as they can, as opposed to going to those hospitals. Some of the hospital waits are 6 hours plus. So hopefully you would get in much quicker to your primary care physician if that's possible. Right now, elective surgeries are being canceled. So that seems to be pretty commonplace throughout our hospitals. I don't know when those will come back around, but we've been through this before where elective surgeries were canceled. So I think people will have to accept that. And hopefully none of those are really significant things that they have to have now. So those are a couple right off the top.
Any further questions, commissioners? Thank you very much, Will,
Thank
for
you.
the update. Appreciate it. Next will be our first opportunity for public comment. And I would ask that those that wish to address the commission, that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Please state your name and give your address to Deputy Clerk Sherry Sales.
First individual is Lori Grassman.
Hi, Lori.
Hi. Lori Grassman from Robinson Township, and I'm kind of great that I follow him. We're all 20 months closer to death, and obviously things are exploding. And it seems as if a lot of people are under the impression that we will resume normal life after we obey all of these things. Like, when, like when a certain number are vaccinated, or like when a certain number are boosted, or like when policies are implemented, like when can we go back to normal? After 20 months, we've done all these things and we're nowhere closer to normal. We're worse. We've shut down businesses, we've shut down schools. In many cases, the schools are shut down this week, and we were told that that wouldn't happen if we did all of the things that we were supposed to do. And we've masked up and we've continued to mask the children, and that obviously didn't work. And we've taken away parents' choice, and that didn't work. We're nowhere closer to normal there. We've vaccinated, depending where you look, 60 to 70% of Ottawa County, and that isn't working. And now Fauci says the vaccine isn't working, and so we need to booster. Like, how many boosters? 1, 2, forever? We have done all those things in Ottawa County, and we're now at the highest level we have ever been. We are moving backwards, not forwards. Do you honestly believe that doing more of the same will get different results? Wear your mask, get the shot, get more shots. As long as we do the same thing, we're going to get the same result. Life didn't pause 20 months ago. The seconds have been ticking away, and yet we haven't gotten anywhere. All we know now is that the mandates aren't going to go away. They're going to continue. So how can the health department be so concerned in August, and they're now getting worse, and they're going to take it, they're going to take the mask away in January? So the 11 men will either shoulder the blame of more of the same and realize that it didn't work, or do something different. We need something different. On August 30, from your own independent research of an outside lawyer, you were told that you could fire the health director. It is time to stop allowing unelected health department to control the county and do more of the same failed policies. It is time to look at the states that are winning their battle with COVID and start doing that. It will be a long process, but we need to try to win. Then we need to start following the protocols that have proved to work. And we are not in a holding pattern, and it is time to start winning, because life is passing by and we're not getting any closer to normal. It is time we realize that this isn't going away, and we need to learn to live a normal life around it. We cannot mandate the rest of our lives away. Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
Next, we have Lauren Allen.
My name is Lauren. Do you need my address, did you say?
Just the city or township where you're from.
Allendale.
Thank you.
Okay. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form that shall seem to them most likely to affect their safety and happiness. My name is Lauren Allen, and just a few months ago, at 15 years old, I came here to recite that portion of the Declaration of Independence and make a few points. As a citizen and student of your county, I am at your mercy. I cannot vote, therefore I get no say or opinion on who shall run my life. The one thing I can do, or could do until now, is speak to you, tell you how what you are doing is affecting my life. So in September, my mom took work off early and we rushed here with no speech prepared and joined the Zoom in the car in case we didn't make it in time. We did, however, get here before the meeting ended. Even so, we were only allowed 30 seconds each, 30 seconds because of the weather, we were told. The weather which would not have mattered if we were allowed in the building. After well over a year of assault on our liberties, I was rewarded with 30 seconds. I shook the entire ride home. And once I was finally alone, tears of fear, hopelessness, and desperation fell from my eyes. Fear of what was and is to come, hopelessness for the same, desperation to be given any shred of control over my own future, and above all, mourning. Mourning for the America I was told about as a child, an America with freedom and liberty, an America worth fighting for, the America the Founding Fathers had in mind. So I ask today that you let us speak, and please, for the love of God, listen.
Thank you, Lauren.
Next, we have Ronalyn Allen.
Bonnie Allen from Allendale. Well, I'm back. That was my daughter. I needed a few weeks to recover from being relegated to waiting outside to speak, limited to a minute, which we split, while we stood about 50 feet from here on a Zoom call. So I am thankful to be here today.
I still stand for the rights of citizens to decide for ourselves what we and our children wear, what goes into our bodies, and our right to publicly gather and speak, and our right to free and fair elections to change things. Despite the high numbers of vaccinated, COVID deaths are up across the country. And despite the lack of time-tested research, vaccine mandates have rolled out across the nation, forcing many to make the choice between medical freedom and their job. There's been no time for the necessary long-controlled studies. Yet people are being coerced into being part of a massive experiment, which to some has had some devastating consequences. And that's only the consequences that have happened so far, since it's all still so new. The so-called vaccine is unlike others. It may decrease symptoms, but it doesn't limit spread. Well, it may decrease symptoms while it lasts, but it doesn't limit spread. So people unwittingly walk around in public spreading COVID, feeling better, but still being infectious vectors of disease. No fever, less symptoms maybe, but nevertheless carriers. So here we are another year later with a super majority of vaccinated people. Still the virus spreads. Quarantines, masks, vaccines come in and out. And now the answer, which some scientists predicted over a year ago, is frequent boosters or freedom. The freedom to choose our own destiny using our God-given defenses. Freedom to live, to risk, to choose what we do with our bodies. Funny, that's a different talking point than you usually hear out of someone like me. All the while, the vaccine manufacturers and the Faucis and Gates of the world grow richer and more powerful as our local public health departments are actually losing their autonomy to the greater powers. As we as people and as a county need to push back against the tyranny and regain our choice and our control over our domain. I was going to say a little more. I actually want to dovetail on what the emergency person said earlier. I missed the title, but I work at trying to prevent hospitalizations, rehospitalizations, and emergency room visits. So I'm fairly experienced with that piece and trying to keep people from going to the ER unnecessarily. And, you know, I guess I've seen, I knew this would happen if I didn't have it written down. I'm just concerned with the, let's put the procedure.
White.
So anyway, please sign the resolution. Sorry.
Terry White.
Hi, I'm Terry White from Robinson Township. I'd like to thank you, the commissioners, on the previous resolution regarding COVID mandates. I would like for you to consider issuing a resolution turning back any mandates on vaccines for children, regardless of whether they are needed to attend school or not. The business of America is business, not health mandates. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, through the Health Department, should be secondary to businesses operating freely for themselves and their customers within the county. The mismanagement of this state under the current administration has put burdens on all of us, and as business owners, they are onerous. Please look at other states and the progress they are making to keep their businesses strong. We should be working to model them in this state also. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
And that is all of the public comment at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next, we'll entertain approval for our agenda. So moved. Support. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on agenda? Seeing none. Mr. Robach, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Dannenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Meffelink.
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yes.
Mr. Holtvor.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
And Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, under actions and reports, consent resolutions, Mr. Dannenberg.
Thank you, Vice Chair Finsky. I'd like to make a motion that we approve consent resolutions 1 through 2.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Mr. Court?
Sir, Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Hofluer,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
and Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
From Planning and Policy, Commissioner DeYoung.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Regarding the scoring criteria for development rights, I move to approve the 2022 purchasing of development rights program scoring criteria.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Commissioners? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Hofluer,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
and Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the Stearns Creek expansion purchase agreement, I move to approve the purchase agreement of a property for $242,000 as part of the Stearns Creek expansion.
Gentlemen, discussion? Been moved and seconded. Will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Hofluer,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
and Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the Item Explorers Trail construction, I move to approve the bid from Riverworks Construction in the amount of $1,283,936.50 for the construction of the Jennison Mills segment of the Idema Explorers Trail.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion regarding the construction bid? Seeing none, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Hofluer,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
and Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
From Finance and Administration, Commissioner Bowen, you have quite a few, so please don't tire.
May need to take a break halfway through or something. I don't know. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. In regards to the fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2022 budget adjustments, I make a motion to approve the 2021 and 2022 budget adjustments per the attached schedule.
Support.
Is there any discussion or questions?
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Hofluer,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
and Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the 2021 Ottawa County apportionment report, I make a motion to approve the revised 2021 Ottawa County apportionment report.
Support.
Is there any discussion or questions? It's been moved and seconded. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Hofluer,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
and Mr. Fensky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the Ottawa County Correctional Facility Telecommunications, I make a motion to approve the proposal from Smart Communications to provide telecommunications, tablets, and additional services within the Ottawa County Adult Correctional Facility.
Is there any discussion or questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate all the work done by purchasing, fiscal, and the sheriff's office to put this contract together. There's definitely improvement over the current contract. I would like to make a motion, however, to waive the commission structure in favor of further corresponding rate reductions in the contract. And Steve, you're welcome to speak to that.
Yes, actually, we're both going to
Oh,
speak.
Derek, I didn't
to
see
the
you.
project.
I appreciate your
He's
time
hiding-
as well.
He's hiding behind me again.
All right.
so, but no. Again, this tablet project, this is something that when I took office 4.5, almost 5 years ago now, was a dream to have tablets come into the jail facility. I've seen the success throughout the state of Michigan, other states, and at the state corrections level. To have a tablet system in there, it is beneficial not only for our staff in our jail day-to-day operations, but it's also beneficial to the citizen that's currently in our facility. Everything from working on the Forgotten Man Ministry program, we're working with them of developing a program, their GED programs, communication with family outside through email. There's just a magnitude of possibilities with this system. And I'm going to ask Chief Deputy Christensen to outline some of those. But again, this is something, to be honest with you, I wish I would have had a year ago during the COVID, especially when they were in lockdown, because this is also a great tool and talking to other sheriffs for the mental health of the citizen that's in the jail, to be able to communicate, to be able to telecommunicate. So again, I think it's a fantastic project that will take us and modernize things as technology changes and continues. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the Chief Deputy.
Thanks, Sheriff. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Fenske and all the commissioners. Thank you for providing the Sheriff's Office an opportunity to provide you a brief overview of the Smart Communications project that we're requesting to move forward through our correctional facility. So our goal over the past several years, working with Captain Fought, who's the jail administrator, the jail command team, and our talented team of men and women working in the facility, as well as with the sheriff and undersheriff, is to improve our corrections operations and programming on a continual basis. We identified the opportunity to vastly improve the manner in which our citizens inside and outside the facility can communicate with one another. We're seeking to implement upgrades in the telecommunications area by adding more phones to the facility and each of the inmate living areas, as well as the opportunity to add mobile phone carts. And what this opportunity does is it provides us and our staff the opportunity to move phones to individuals that may be a little bit more of a challenge than others. It just provides everyone an all-encompassing opportunity to use a phone. In addition, we're proposing to integrate modern technologies in the form, as the sheriff mentioned, of tablets, an electronic tablet device, as well as video visitation. The important part about the video visitation is that being here in this remote area to some provides an opportunity for individuals throughout the county to be able to connect with their loved ones and not be on site. Some individuals are from the old school perhaps and like to see in person or be in person to have their visit. So we also will be accommodating that request. More impressive is the program extends a free option for citizens inside the facility to send and or receive 8 messages free per month at 30,000 characters per message. This gives individuals inside our facility far more opportunity to communicate with the outside than they currently do. We know that electronic methods aren't for everyone. So again, the inmates on the inside of the facility have the opportunity to use a tablet or a kiosk within the facility, or once again, the phone. So we continually are trying to advance on what we're able to do. In addition to the communication platform, there are some other additional opportunities. They have a mail guard program. This proposal provided by Smart Communications provided our agency the opportunity to modernize how citizens receive mail within our facility. For individuals that aren't familiar with the challenges we see on the inside of the facility, when any mail enters into the facility, it has the opportunity to have contraband added to it, liquid, narcotics, or when someone's trying to harm our staff or someone inside the facility, some type of hazardous material. So what happens is Smart Communications provides us with a mailing address. All citizen correspondence from the exterior will be sent to Smart Communications, in which their staff is trained to open it, scan it, and send it to our facility. Some questions have been raised about the time that it takes from mail to our facility to receive it for the inmates. Our average stay in our facility currently is about 22 days. Speaking with Smart Communications, we asked those questions because we wanted it to be timely. We learned that from the time that Smart receives the communication, within 24 hours, it is received at our facility. Yes, there are varying challenges when it comes to how the mail would be provided, but in general, it would turn over at a 24-hour rate. So what happens is the individual provides a inmate number, so to speak, or their identifier. When they come into our facility, they register. So they have their own personal identification number and then their own PIN. So when they go to have free time or go to communicate on their tablet, they can access their mail. It's scanned, it's in a safe manner. And it also, it cuts down on fire load in our facility and cleanliness. In addition to that, legal mail is a big topic in our facility. Generally, obviously, the privacy of the citizen in the facility comes to mind when it comes to confidentiality, that they be able to speak to their counsel without any obstruction from law enforcement or otherwise. So they have a legal mail guard system as well. This is a trademarked product in which basically it's a kiosk that has a computerized function. So what happens is we would receive legal mail like we currently do today. Our staff would keep the legal mail sealed. They would provide it to the citizen on the inside of the facility. They'd be escorted to the kiosk. The individual would then upload all of the legal documents and then receive an encrypted message that they could only access by their inmate identification number, as well as a PIN that they provide or make up on their own. It's a great opportunity. In addition, we found an opportunity to enhance what we have as a law library to provide the citizens their right to look at legal materials. Smart Communications is offering a free digital version of this. So once again, any individual that is out on free time or request an opportunity to see a law library would receive the chance to utilize either of those platforms to see actually updated law libraries. So at the time of changes, rather than having a book that may be outdated. Another great opportunity, digital requests, grievance, and medical forms. How do the citizens on the inside communicate to our deputies when they have a question, or how do they communicate with community mental health or with our medical provider? They provide written kites that are transferred from the living areas to those specific areas. Having a digital request and grievance medical form is far better for the citizens on the inside because they can type it in their own words. It's legible for everyone to read, and it's immediate. It goes to jail medical immediately. It goes to community mental health immediately. And then when it comes to any grievances or any issues that our staff would need to respond to, there would be a hierarchy as well as a workflow, so to speak, on the timeliness of that. That protects both the citizens on the inside of the facility as well as I feel our staff and our command staff, and being able to respond appropriately with much more oversight. Education, there's completely free education, rehabilitation and reentry platform that currently we're not able to provide. In-person programs and initiatives that we have in place are continually getting better, locally, but having the opportunity and the many perks of this programs is that we can provide every single citizen on the inside the opportunity to have these educational classes. There's free educational courses. There, we can work with our courts to cater to court-ordered programming that could be success-driven on a tablet or a kiosk. There's self-help opportunities. There's GED that would be also an option. There's vocationalist, spiritual, religious, behavioral courses as well. In closing, I know I just gave you a lot of information. We've been working on this project for a long time. We're really excited to bring this to our citizens. In closing, our agency's project members spent countless hours working with our purchasing team from Fiscal Services. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Karen and her team for the amount of time that they've spent. We want to make sure that we're able to communicate with our citizens inside and outside of the facility on many platforms. And I think this is a great opportunity. The project not only provides enhanced technology that brings more beneficial educational and rehabilitation programming, it will also benefit our staff through safety and security functionality. And finally, during our process, we really wanted to afford citizens inside the facility and outside the facilities a fair and economical chance to communicate with their loved ones. We looked long and hard at the rates that were provided by the vendors and actually negotiated better terms than we currently have. So I thank you once again for the time and opportunity to speak before you.
Chief Deputy Christensen, I wonder if you could maybe dive just a little bit more into the weeds on the financial aspect, like maybe a telephone call costs 21 cents for X amount of minutes versus maybe 16 cents or 15 cents. I mean, are rates for the citizens going down with use of this program?
Okay, so it's a multi-tiered program. So there's pricing for text messaging, there's pricing for content on the tablets. So the free portion that I mentioned would be related to the religious programming, court ordered, and there are some basic functionalities that are completely free. There are opportunities for the citizens on the inside of the facility to actually add, they can add money to an account, or their loved ones can add money to an account. And what that equates to is exclusive material, maybe reading, et cetera, which we can monitor. Some of those prices are 50 cents per minute. As far as the telephone is concerned, an average 15-minute call currently is about $8, a little over $8. The new platform and about 21 cents a minute. I would bring it down to 16 cents a minute, which would equal about $2.40 per call. So a considerable drop from the telecommunications side. If there's additional questions specifically related to some of the different rates, I would rather actually reference those materials if you had additional questions.
Commissioners, questions and discussions for Chief Deputy? I think Commissioner Zastra, you had said
The
you
motion on the
want
floor.
to make a motion. You would have to make an amendment to the motion since the motions was already on the floor and moved. So you would have to make an amendment to the present motion, I believe.
Yes, that's what I did.
Is that what you're?
Yeah, that's what I,
asking for?
yes, that's what I asked for. Yes, yes.
Is there?
Yeah, I just let me speak real quick. Yeah, I think I reached out to all of you. I really appreciate Chief Deputy, all your work, and again, finance and, Sheriff's Office. Like I said, I think this is a great contract. I personally think we can do a little bit better, and, if we can go back to smart communications and, say, what if we do, a waiver of some commissions, what would that rate structure look like? That's basically the motion. And I'm asking for support for a motion to for the Sheriff Department to go back to communications, asking for a reduction in rates based on a waiver of our commission structure.
Do all commissioners understand Commissioner Zastra's amendment to the original motion? Then I would just ask, is there anyone to support Commissioner Zastra's amendment to the motion? Seeing none, the amendment for the motion dies. We'll go back to the original motion, which there was support. There was motioned and there was support. So Clerk Robach, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
No.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
and Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Regarding the declaration of intent to enter into a contract of lease with Ottawa County Building Authority, I make a motion to approve the resolution to ratify and confirm actions taken by the board on October 26, 2021.
Support.
It was moved and seconded. Is there a discussion or questions?
Just at the meeting in October, what was included in the packet was the actual notice of intent. We meant to also include the resolution itself, and we didn't. And out of a abundance of caution from our bond counsel, we're including the resolution for you to ratify essentially the actions that you took a month ago. I will note that in the resolution, there was just one typo. It refers to October 27th. Our meeting in October was actually October 26th. So we'll get that corrected.
Clerk Robach, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
No.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
and Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the security enterprise agreement with Sentinel Technologies, I make a motion to approve the 3-year security enterprise agreement with contracted vendor Sentinel Technologies Incorporated for a total cost of $376,369.06 in 3 annual payments of $125,546.35.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Holtvluwer,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
and Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the wage and benefit adjustments for unclassified Group N and Group T employees for 2022, I make a motion to approve the following wage and benefit adjustments for unclassified Group N and Group T employees for 2022. Wages effective January 1, 2022, increase the existing salary schedule by 2%, excluding elected officials, judges, and Board of Commissioners. Benefits in 2022, the employee copay on the 100/80 high plan would remain at 20%. The high deductible health plan with a health savings account would have a 0 copay, and the deductibles in 2022 would be $1,400 for a single, $2,800 for a family, and the employee or employer will fund the deductible for 2022 at 50%. $700 for a single and $1,400 for 2-person or family, and that is including elected officials and judges.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Fenske,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Holflor,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
and Mr. Terpstra.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the Holsteg Conservation Easement Option Agreement, I make a motion to approve a conservation easement option agreement with Thomas W. Holsteg and Janice L. Holsteg in the amount of 272,000 for plus or minus 36.1 acres located in Zealand Township, Michigan.
Support.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Holflor,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
and Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the 5-year agreement for copier and print management services, I make a motion to approve the 5-year agreement with Copytech for a countywide equipment assessment, replacement, and printer management services at a not to exceed cost of $650,000.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Clerk Robach, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Holflor,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
and Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the Spoonville Trail ownership and maintenance issues, I make a motion to approve to have Ottawa County assume ownership of the Spoonville Trail and accept a $3,000 per year contribution from Crockery Township for 25 years for routine maintenance expenses of the Spoonville Trail.
Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Holflor,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
and Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And finally, regarding the community mental health personnel request, I make a motion to approve the request from Community Mental Health to add 6 full-time benefited positions to increase the full-time equivalent of 2 part-time positions to full-time at a cost of $622,466 paid for with Medicaid, millage, and grant funds.
Been moved and supported. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Holflor,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Terpstra,
Yes.
Mr. Meppelink,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
and Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, appointments, none. Discussion items, at this point, none. Report of the county administrator, Mr. Shea.
Mr. Vice Chair, just a couple of things. We're only going to have one board meeting in December. It'll be the December 14th meeting, so we will not be having our December 28th board meeting. Regina's in the process of scheduling a special meeting of the Finance Committee on December 8th at 11 a.m. We want to talk about some potential positions at CMH, the ARPA, the use of ARPA funds, and there may be another issue or two to discuss. And we want to discuss that because some of those items may appear on the board meeting then in December, on December 14th. Speaking of ARPA, the committee has met and has issued, and this will be discussed in more detail at the finance meeting, but has met and reached a recommendation, a consensus on recommending the criteria that would be used to evaluate the different potential projects that come in, the process by which those projects would be accepted and handled and conveyed to the board, and have also had some general recommendations on the major categories of buckets or buckets of how the money would be spent. And so that will be brought before finance on December 8th, and then ultimately to the board for approval on the 14th before we start any process at all on that. The other thing is Marcy and I have been working with the various unions on obtaining letters of understanding to implement the wage study results. We would like to implement those with the bargaining groups now in time for January 1st, rather than waiting for those various different collective bargaining agreements to end. So far, those seem to be going pretty well, and hope to have that wrapped up in the next couple of weeks or so. The other thing you may have heard with respect to the vaccine mandate, OSHA has suspended implementation of the vaccine mandate for employers with over 100 employees based on the various, there have been a couple court rulings that have put a stop to that, at least temporarily. So we'll see how the courts play out. I think we've mentioned before that the county does not have any intention of issuing its own vaccine mandate for its employees. If the courts ultimately say that the federal vaccine mandate is valid and must be implemented, then we will follow the rule of law and implement it. But at this point, it's been suspended. And so we'll just have to see how the courts play that out.
John, quick question on that.
Sure.
One thing I haven't understood is it hasn't rolled out yet, right? It's not until January rollout?
Well, as I understand it, and I know Marcy's here to correct any mistakes I make, but as I understand it, employees had to be fully vaccinated by January 4th and maybe have their first shot by roughly December 4th.
Oh, okay, so that part of it.
So there
I
was
was wondering how you
stepping
could suspend
progress
something
to
that hadn't
that.
actually taken place yet. Okay.
So, but all that's been put on hold. So those dates are no longer valid. Just had the chance today, along with Commissioner DeYoung and Clerk Roebuck, to go to the Adoption Day ceremony at the Grand Haven Courthouse. I think that's been my third time that I've done that. It's just it's really a wonderful event actually to see new families being created. And usually I think when people think of courtrooms, it may be a more negative connotation, but that's one of the real bright spots there. So that was just a very nice event. And lastly, our offices will be closed this Thursday and Friday for the Thanksgiving holiday. So that's what we have.
Did you want to, I know that Marcy passed out the executive recruitment for new county administrator. Did you want to mention anything about how that's going or that process?
I'll allow Marcy to comment on that.
Good afternoon, commissioners. We are working with GovHR on getting the information out. The posting is live. It's been live for a couple weeks now. As of the end of last week, we did have 10 candidates that have already put in for the position. It's also out on NeoGov, and it's been distributed through many agencies throughout the state of Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio. So one thing we do have, Carmen Davis was our executive recruiter, and she has taken another job, something we're seeing quite frequently with the market these days. So Heidi Voorhees, that owns GovHR, is taking over our recruitment. So we will have the president of the organization working on it. And I did pass out the recruitment brochure. That was the same information that was in the posting, but just wanted you to have a hard copy of that brochure at this time also. Commissioner Zylstra, did you have a question?
Thanks. Do we have an idea of a kind of geographical distribution of some of the candidates? Are they all from Michigan, from the Midwest, or do you have?
What they will do is they will go
You haven't really
through
seen
and do
that
a
yet?
full vetting of the candidates before the committee even sees
Okay,
the
so you haven't
candidates.
seen
So
any
I'm
names or anything?
unsure
Okay.
who they are at this time. I
Right.
just know that we have approximately 10
Yeah,
of
I
them.
had
at
I
the
had a
end.
question from a constituent and I didn't know the answer, so. but,
Correct, yeah.
We haven't seen that even yet.
We haven't even seen that yet. Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is general information, comments, meetings attended.
I want to concur what John said about the adoption day today. So many people involved, the court system, lots of staff, lots of people from the clerk's office, different organizations. And to sit there this morning and see several families come in and welcome these children to a forever home, just heartwarming, just a great thing, everything going on in the world. It's just nice to see some success stories, some good stories, some positive stories. So kudos to all that were involved in the organization today to make these kids have forever homes. Good event.
Thank you.
Vice Chair. Yeah, I did have the opportunity to attend. I was asked to invited to attend the Ottawa County Veterans Service Task Force, their initial meeting last week here in Fillmore. Basically, it's kind of a group, I wouldn't say organized by West Michigan Veterans Coalition, but that group together with the VA is looking how they can set up kind of an umbrella group here in Ottawa. I did leave some information with all of the commissioners. I did have lunch today too with Deb Unseld and Paul Ryan from West Michigan Veterans Coalition. I was really impressed by the work they're doing and the work they want to do here in Ottawa County, just making sure that veterans get the care they need in the community. So.
Thank you. I just want to let everybody know that I believe our Board of Commissioners Rules Committee is going to get together on December the 13th to go over the board rules and discuss that a little bit further, because we want to start the new year in January with a clear understanding of resolutions and amendments and et cetera. So that will be on December the 13th in the morning. At this time, this is our second opportunity.
Can I make one comment, please?
Yes.
Next week, Tuesday, the MAC board will be meeting with legislators most of the day in Lansing. Our biggest discussion is that the state has to pick up their timeline as far as how they distribute the ARP money, because there's a bunch of states boarding us already that have done it already. And they're really concerned that the contracts that will be out there will be all gone already for our services that we might need to perform some of the art business. So if you got any suggestions that you want me to carry to Lansing, but they'll have talking points. It's going to be real good discussion with our legislators. So it'll happen next week, Tuesday.
Super.
Wait a minute, Phil, I got one little question.
Sure.
ARP, one of the things that we talked about was broadband, right? Is that a part of this too? Is the state also adding broadband to some of their money that's they're using or not?
We don't know yet. That's what we want to figure out.
Okay, I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, are we
We want to know all
overlapping everything?
we want to know all them questions, and we're really not getting a lot of release out of the state yet. So,
Okay, thank you.
Right, it seems to me that with art money and now with the infrastructure bill that's gone through as well, that there should be no one in the state of Michigan without broadband, seems like.
does, don't it?
Anyway, just comment.
Any comments on it, John?
Well-
I could see by the look on your face, you wanted to make a comment.
Well, I'd agree with Phil that, we want to know what the state's going to spend its money on, including broadband, because if we can leverage some of that money, it's less of our own ARPA money that we would have to put towards broadband. So that's really important.
Yep.
Okay, now's our second opportunity for public comment, and I don't think I see anybody out in the audience that is public unless they want to be public and address the board. And if not, do we have anybody on Zoom?
I currently do not have anyone on Zoom, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good. We're adjourned.
Thank you.